So management tools for insight facilitation, my topic for the next 20 minutes. And strategy and innovation are probably both terms which are used so often that their meaning got really fuzzy. When we read Henry Mintzberg, who wrote a lot of books around strategy, and he is a little bit the counterpart of Michael Porter, and you probably know that those two guys are struggling sometimes a little bit. But Mintzberg sees strategy as really as planned, as a planned course of action or as a pattern. I mean, the pattern is the representation of the planned course of action in the past. So your footsteps in the snow of yesterday. Position means a description of where you want to be, and perspective is a direction where you could go, or even consider strategy as a ploy. And not one of those different pieces for strategy is the right one. All of them can be used at a certain point of time when they are most appropriate. Actually, there are 10 strategy schools which have emerged from the 60s until today. So the common denominator is that strategy making, that a law for strategy making really does not exist. Strategy falls into the field of problem solving and decision making, and science and research has produced a lot of tools helping managers there in that area, and quantitative tools like those, the basic decision tree analysis, real options, even Black-Scholes Monte Carlo analysis. I mean, these are great and valid tools, very powerful, but are they the appropriate tools to your CEO talk in the corner office? So maybe not, and maybe we should have a look to the problem from its end. And why not asking a CEO what he's expecting? And here's a quote: "As a CEO twice myself, I didn't require real-time status availability for strategy execution. What I valued then and still today is relevant information presented so it is easy to digest, from which accurate conclusions can be drawn, and confidence that we are looking at accurate data when we choose to review the status." So something easy and more digestible. And one great example are strategic stories. I mean, this is a Harvard Business article from 1998 about the way how 3M is really creating strategy. And there is the voice of the employees, and they say, allow us to get excited about where we are going. Take the people with you, make them excited, actually make them understand your strategy, because a well-written narrative strategy that shows a difficult situation and an innovative solution leading to improved market share can be galvanizing and is certainly more engaging than a bulleted mandate to increase market share by 5%. Actually, I didn't get the numbers of 3M in 1998, but in 2001, 3M was a $16 billion company at an operating income of 30%, 13. And in 2012, they grew to nearly a $30 billion company, so double it in 11 years, at a 22% operating income. So they must have done something right with their strategic stories. So formulating strategic stories from a strategy tree, that is the way we are proposing. And the strategy tree is developed actually narratively and quantitatively. So objectives clearly described in a narrative way to motivate people to join the endeavor towards the future, motivate them. A strategy understandable, clearly expressed, so that everyone knows what to do and what his role is, but also having quantitative goals at the same time. So what you see in dark brown are the tactics which are adding up. Tactics can be really signed with cost, and they are return on invest, and they are adding up towards a goal which is smart, it's measurable, it is easy to understand, and it's quantitative. But for the terms of getting the troops, I mean, aligned and walking in the same direction and putting the noses, turning the heads and the noses into the same direction, a narrative story is really needed. So the approach to problem solving is of course impact driven, it's of course focused and fact based, but it's standing on a base of creative thinking to really create impact. So the question is, I mean, how to eat an elephant, and the answer is breaking it up in digestible pieces. So the problem itself is broken down in certain components, in certain parts, which are actually independent from each other. It's very important that they are independent from each other, but collectively they are complementary. So they are adding up, they are creating more insight and thus contributing to improved and advanced decision making. And how could a tree look like? You see, there are three, and this is very holistic, that is, I mean, helicopter view, three key questions in strategy making. And those three questions have to be answered and triangulated. So, I mean, is the company able to provide value? And what value should the company provide in views of their customers and users of their products and services? And how does the company dispose of necessary resources? And there could be questions, what are the traits of the potential customers? How do they behave? How is competition behaving? How are they perceived? How much worth is value? And this is a very cool question, because there's a hard debate between engineers and customers. How much worth is the value they are creating? Disposal of necessary resources. Can the firm be competitive? Can we maintain a competitive advantage? Are we prepared to battle? But the third one, probably the most important one, is the question after collaboration. And the ditch of the road of strategy, I mean, it's full of wrecked endeavors because the challenges of cross-cultural communication was ignored or at least underestimated. And today, we really have the luxury to have a whole 20-minute report on the way how culture impacts strategy and how important it is for companies to generate cultural intelligence, because we strongly believe that culturally intelligence is one of the key core competitive advantages, sustainable ones, for the future. Insight generation through tool-guided facilitation. I mean, all those issues from the strategy tree raises questions, and we need tools to develop collaboratively answers to that. And here is an overview of 14 tools we provide, and those 14 tools are structured in 3 different passes. The first path is the opportunity path. It's actually the exploration and discovery path, how opportunities for companies are identified. And there are tools like customer behavior, value maps, customer value mission matrices. The second one is more the economical path, which focuses on the abilities of the companies, the resources, competences, and financial buckets they have. Domain structure analysis, their setup in the competitive framework is important, and of course discovery-driven planning, reverse income statement, a very, very important tool actually developed by DuPont about, I would say, 10, 15 years ago. The last one is the shortest one, but the most impactful. That's why it ended last into the RW, which is the cultural intelligence, and Danny will elaborate on that in a few minutes. So I have picked a few 5 tools where we give you a quick 1-minute brief overview what their purpose is and what they are used for. Actually, let's start with the customer activity cycle. The customer activity cycle was originally developed by Sandra van der Merwe, and it's about the observation of a customer during the whole consumption life cycle, pre, during, and post-consumption. What makes a customer selecting a product? What is his experience during the consumption, and what happens after it? If the customer is happy, how does companies pick up this happiness and convert it into marketing messages? And what actually happens is, in a second layer around the experience of customers, industry is building up solutions, and solutions in the pre, post, and during phase. And perpendicular to that, those industries are building up verticals where offers, solutions, and whole value systems are created. And the new way of thinking and the new way of value creation is not to create value within one of those verticals, but cut through those verticals and find out and to build new value models. Customer experience cycle, very effective way to create completely new value models. McKinsey Brand Diamond reflects actually the identity of a firm. Where is the firm, and how can a firm leverage its own identity? So typically it starts with the features and advantages, what a brand can really do, what a product can really do, and then what those features and advantages and the benefits, what are the emotional rewards created at the customer while the product is consumed or used. Next question is, how are those intangibles, these emotional benefits, used by marketing to create tangible messages around the product and around the brand to motivate people to purchase more of it, and from there to create an ongoing long-term perception what the brand is about and how value it is and why the brand should be recommended, liked, and shared. Competitive radar map is rooted actually in key events time management. So if you draw a key events timeline, it is pretty much two-dimensional, and actually the radar maps puts it in 3 dimensions. The center is typically the past, the mid-range, the 2008 range is the present, and the 2015 range is the future. And this is actually a map a team has done in 2008, and it's about the future of mobile telephones. And we see that there's typically big competition. We read the bloody ocean area across the hardware manufacturers, and there was a company coming out which is Apple, and creating and cutting out and carving out a totally new lifestyle edge. Luxury labels Prada and Yves Saint Laurent, and they are also producing telephones. I think and they don't make them, of course. For luxury labels, the content provider are going into the telephone. Actually, that was a time where Google announced the Google phone. Actually, they don't make one. They are collaborating with others, but they've created an operating system, Android, for it. And networks. What is going to happen with them? There was telecom in Germany, branded telephones, mobile telephones, and Vodafone as well. And how are those players working together? And actually, if you see something which could happen today, it is today the time to talk about it and draw these scenarios probably Alexander Fink has just laid out. That is a pretty busy chart, but it's the one of the most important ones. Business structure assessment, very important to do because it addresses the weaknesses of the SWOT analysis. In the classical SWOT analysis, this four-field analysis, all of us know, actually opportunities and threats are separated, but that is not true. In reality, opportunities and threats can exist at the same time, and actually financial markets, they teach us that the opportunities are larger as the threats get, because this is the discount rate you get for your opportunity. So a structured approach of 8 steps really to separate product, services and attractiveness from market attractiveness. Look at the attractiveness of the market in isolation of the product, and then look at the position also in isolation market. What can the company do? What can the product do? And from there, in multiple steps, go down, dig down until the market product portfolio is ready, which is a 9-field matrix with some recommendations of action. And the SWOT will be a product out of that, where the opportunities and threats are separately viewed, and the strengths and weaknesses of strategy combined then together, and then a meaningful output will be generated. Because what we know is that about 80% of all companies are using SWOTs, and 80% of all companies are unhappy. Last but not least, all those 3 passes are ending up in real inverse assessment. Real inverse assessment, originally developed by Don Shrello in the 60s, used by 3M, GE, Honeywell, Novartis, a lot of companies during the 80s, further improved, and then actually in 2008 scientifically verified by George Day from Wharton. And our 2-penny contribution to that is that we add the analytical hierarchy process to it, because we found out that the weighting of the categories in the real inverse assessment is not done in a consistent way, and HAP helps there. And this is a very nice tool, a very managerial friendly tool to assess the opportunity and the probability of certain endeavors. And actually, we are looking not success rate, we are looking really here probability of failure of markets and products, which makes it by far more realistic. And that always happens if you press a wrong button. So my presentation is gone, but I will get it quickly back. So decision making and communication is as important as decision designing, of course. So designing compelling stories in the same pyramidal way as we've seen, starting with a governing thought, developing a key storyline, backing it up with supporting facts, asking about the situation, the complication, and the questions. And this is typically the way how the consultants are building up stories, which are then organized in those logical groups. As you can see, objective and recommendation is the first level of the argumentation. So you start with the recommendation, which is something weird for Europeans, because we are much more used to deductive logical reasoning. And here we start with the conclusion, and then in the second line we come with the rationale and with the argument, the reason, the evidence. We typically only pick up that type of presentation when asked for. So the governing source, again, the key story timeline, supporting facts, and very easy to build then the storyboard actually. And here you're going to see the same slides, the same charts, the same stuff we have seen in our passes to the decision, the tools we are using, the outcome which is generated there will automatically flow into the presentation, and Alexander Zimmermann from Solub will give us in a few minutes a great presentation how that can be automated, where time can really be saved. So the success factors, and this is my last slide, for strategy formulation is strategic planning trees, using those trees in a pyramidal way to fill them and back them up with appropriate management tool set, to find the answers, to use collaboratively tools to find the answers to those questions, and then presenting them away where logical groups are structured, easy to digest to meet the expectations of the CEO we had here in the CEO statement we had in the beginning. Thank you very much for your attention. Hope you found that presentation interesting, and I'm looking forward meeting you on the web soon. Thanks a lot. Cheers. Bye bye. Carsten Sambraus.